I'm Tsula, host of Tsula's Big Adventures, and this is Chapter 11 of my multi-part series, Tsula's Complete Video Guide to Becoming an Amateur Astronomer. Chapter 11, Telescope Accessories. In Chapter 10, I went over the most important accessory for your telescope, the eyepiece. I also covered diagonals and filters. And in this chapter, I'm going to discuss some other accessories, some almost as essential as your eyepieces, and others not essential but things to consider for your viewing pleasure. Next to your eyepiece, probably the most important item that you must have is a red headlamp, preferably one that does not force you to go through the white light before getting to the red light. You need a red light if you intend to attend a star party or one of your local astronomy club's star meetings, but you need one in general so that you don't ruin your night vision with a white light. And you should also find out how to turn off your car's dome light and dim your headlights when attending star parties or public viewing areas. Be sure your red headlamp is fully charged, or take some extra batteries or an extra red headlamp when going out for an evening of stargazing, or you'll be sorry. A white light will turn your night vision and it will infuriate your neighbors. I have a few red headlamps myself. I've got this ever bright one that has a separate button for the red headlamp. I have this Vecchia, which also you can just change it from red to white. Sometimes you need the white when you're setting up and putting things away, or you hear an animal. And then I saw this Coast one at Ace Hardware, and it has a red button on top and a white one on the bottom, so you don't accidentally turn on the white one. But I don't like it because the batteries go on this big thing in the back and it's really heavy. So I don't like this one that much. I like this Vecchia the best. So those are just some choices. There are lots and lots of options for red headlamps. Another essential accessory is a good star chart. In Chapter 3, I went over some star charts to get you started, but you should get some good ones to take with you outside. You can use an app on your phone, and apps are nice to have, but every time you turn on your phone, you're going to ruin your night vision, and I personally prefer paper star charts. If you prefer apps, then probably the best one is Stellarium, which is free, and for a hefty, I think $49, you can get Sky Safari Pro, which is excellent. Sometimes it goes on sale, and I think I got it on sale for $29, but that's an excellent app. If you buy an Orion telescope, some of them come with Starry Night software, which is a very powerful tool. For a paper star chart, you cannot beat Sky and Telescope's Sky Atlas. It comes in jumbo and pocket size, and it's in a binder, and the pages fold back, and it's excellent, and I use it all the time. If you're just getting started, you probably can start out with a planisphere, but you're going to outgrow that quickly if you stick with the hobby. And if you get very serious about the hobby, you'll want a star atlas that shows more detail than Sky and Telescope Sky Atlas, which I think goes up to 5th magnitude stars. But sometimes when you're looking for deep space objects, you need to see lower magnitude stars. So you need a star atlas such as the Cambridge Star Atlas by Will Tyrion, which shows up to 6th and 7th magnitude stars. For things to look at, I would recommend Sue French's Deep Sky Wonders. It's heavy, it's hardbound, but it's an excellent book and I really like it. And there is the excellent Turn Left at Orion to give you objects to look for. There are other things you can get, and I've mentioned this one before, the Deep Map 600 that Orion gives you with some of their telescopes, which shows the whole sky. And then you look at the correct time of year to see the things that are visible for that date and time. For help with finding objects, a red dot finder such as the Orion Easy Finder is going to be much better at helping you find objects than a poor quality finder scope that comes with many low-end telescopes. Also, you might consider a Telrad. I got one. It just so happened to come today. Somebody recommended a Telrad to me, one of the viewers. Thank you for that recommendation, because the 8x50 finder scope on my Meade Schmidt Cassegrain is nice, but sometimes it's way off, and it's very hard to find those first 2 stars if it's way off. So I'm going to attach that Telrad to my Meade Schmidt Cassegrain. I've never used one before, but it works like a red dot finder. It shows you the whole sky, but it has concentric circles. And once you line it up with your telescope, you just get you recognize the star pattern and get what you want in that center circle. One thing I don't like is that if you tape it to the telescope, I'm going to have to see if I can screw it in somehow, because I don't want to put tape marks on my telescope. It says to take it off and put it away when not in use, and as you can see, it's pretty big. If you have many eyepieces, like I do, you'll probably want a case to put them in. So I'm using this case that came with a pair of astronomy binoculars I bought, and it doesn't have any dividers, but it works pretty well for holding my eyepieces. I just need to label these plastic cases that some eyepiece makers give you, so it'll make it easier for me to find the eyepiece that I want. And you can put other things like your filters, your Barlows, and cables. And this works out really well for my eyepiece case. If you're going to be taking your mount to a remote location, you'll need a case for it. I bought this Pelican case to take my EQG mount, and it worked out great, keeping my mount safe and free from dust in the dusty desert. I didn't even mold it. I just stuck it in there and closed it, and it fit perfectly. And they come in different sizes, and they're very secure, and this is a great way to transport your mount. Also, if you have a computerized mount, you're going to need a power supply. Celestron makes this power tank, and this, forget how many watt hours it is, 170, I thought it said it on here, but 158. Probably last 3 days. I took this and my 155 watt hour Orion, and between the two, they lasted for a whole week. You have to see what kind of plug your power cable uses, because this Orion Dynamo Pro does not have a cigarette lighter input. Instead, they give you this female to male converter, so you can use the cigarette plug with it. But one thing I found out, you have to be very careful with which power cable you use with these telescopes. My Maxitoff Cassegrain telescope, I found out it will only work with the exact cable that it came with. So just be careful and make sure that the type of power input you're using, AC or cigarette lighter or just these DC 12 volts, is the one that your telescope takes and the cable that it came with. Another important accessory for your telescope is a case. If you have to take your telescope to remote locations, you'll need a case to carry it in, such as this soft-sided case made by Orion. If you bought a refractor, they almost always come in these metal cases, but they only hold the telescope, whereas these soft-sided cases will hold the whole telescope if you get one made for that telescope. recommend a hand truck if you have a Dobsonian for moving it around, and these reflective covers for keeping the dust off of your telescope. And if you have a very large telescope like this beast, 12-inch Meade Schmidt Cassegrain, then I would recommend you get a JMI wheelie bar for wheeling it around. This telescope weighs 100 pounds fully assembled, and it's hard as hell to get the telescope on that little peg that's at the top of the tripod. So I leave it assembled and I just wheel it out on this wheelie bar when I want to view, and I also have a reflective coating for it too to keep the dust off of it. And this wheelie bar works great to wheel it out here to the driveway. It'll also work on a lawn, but if you're going to take it over anything rough, get the pneumatic wheels. Another accessory you might want to look into investing in would be a good set of hex wrenches. I bought 2 sets, metric and imperial, because it seemed like I was constantly using hex wrenches to tighten things. And if you live in the South or you live somewhere else where it's very humid, you will definitely need to invest in a dew shield, especially if you have a Schmidt Cassegrain, because the secondary mirror is right out there just a ½ inch or so from the end of the telescope. I never had to worry about it here because it's so dry in the west, but in the winter you have to worry about frost, so I had to get one. I bought this dew shield from B&H Video, and it just goes on the end like this, and there is no dew right now. Trust me, I think the humidity is probably about 15%, but when it gets cold again, I'll put it on there to keep the frost off of it. Some other things to consider that are not essential but are very helpful are putting a motor drive on your manual equatorial mount. I've never owned a motor drive. I have a manual mount, but I just use the slow motion controls. But it seems like putting a motor drive on it would be a vast improvement for your equatorial mount. Of course, I don't need it for this Meade Schmidt Cassegrain because it's on a fork mount that's all TAS, and you don't have to polar align it, but I think a polar scope is an important accessory for an equatorial mount. Like this EQ6R Pro, it comes with a polar scope with an illuminated reticule, and that really helps you get an accurate polar alignment. If you own a Newtonian, you're going to need to collimate it, and I always use the collimation cap that came with my Dobsonian, but you can buy a Cheshire cap to help you collimate, and they also make laser collimators. I've never used one. I think the collimation cap works fine. I think a good viewing chair like this one is very important to make your viewing as pleasurable as possible and as comfortable as possible. This one's adjustable, and that's great, but do not try to adjust it while you're sitting in it, or you may break your tailbone. I was using it, but with this 6-inch, oh, I don't have my 6-inch refractor on, but I usually have my 6-inch refractor on here, and sometimes I have to get on the ground to look at things at the zenith. And with the Meade Schmidt Cassegrain, because I leave it permanently on this wheelie bar because I don't want to lift this 100-pound monster, as you can see, depending on what I'm looking at, I can't use a chair. In fact, I have to use a ladder sometimes depending on what object and where it is in the sky. But if you have a refractor, usually a chair would be comfortable for viewing with the refractor. And I think that chair with the adjustable seat is excellent for that. I like having a table to put all my stuff on. Definitely not essential, but I really like it. And I definitely don't think this is essential, but I have this carpet that I put down before I put my telescopes out, and I use that when it's cold outside to keep the cold out of my feet. This is my carpet. It's very cute. It has elk on it, and I like it. And sometimes I lie on it because I like to just look at the sky sometimes and stare at the Milky Way. But I haven't used it lately because it's been extremely hot. Also continuing with the non-essential would be laser pointers. I used to use these green laser pointers to help locate, but I hardly ever use them now because the red dot finder works great. But you have to be careful because I think it annoys other people if you're using one, and also it may be illegal where you live. So look into your local laws before using a laser pointer. And they can be intrusive, so watch out if there are people in the area, or if a plane comes, you're not supposed to use it. There are many items that you will need for astrophotography, but I'm going to cover that later when we get to astrophotography. But for now, I want to mention that many astrophotographers use a polar alignment camera. It goes right here at the end of the built-in polar scope. This particular one is the Pole Master. Ioptron also makes one called the iPolar. The Pole Master is just a camera, and the camera goes here where the built-in polar scope looks out of, and the camera takes a picture of the sky, and you attach it with this cable to your laptop, and then you use the software to, you still have to move your Alt-Az controls to line it up, but it goes into a circle on the laptop, and when it goes into that circle, it gets incredibly accurate. So these electronic polar scopes are incredibly accurate, but really not necessary for visual viewing and even for wide field astrophotography. The polar alignment that you can make with the built-in polar scope will be more than adequate. But one item that I think is very important for the amateur astronomer is to have a notebook to record the things that you see. And this is my notebook, and I write down what I look at when I'm viewing, and I was putting sketches right into the notebook, but if I really want to make a sketch, I will use these circles. That's the field of view that you see, and then I write down the date and the constellation and the eyepiece I used, and then I sketch it on one of these. And you can make your own template and get a clipboard like this, a number 2 pencil graphite. You might want to get one of these erasers so you can make the fuzziness and nebulosity and some of these stumps. And then you can start sketching the things that you see. And that will help you be a better amateur astronomer, because you will start to see more and more detail the more you stare at an object, and sketching it will make you stare at it and get more detail. And it'll make you a better stargazer. In the non-essential, but boy would I love to have one category, is a home observatory. SkyShed makes a pod that has a dome, and it rolls back halfway so that this half is covered and the other half is for viewing the sky. Home Dome makes a whole observatory in different sizes, It's made out of fiberglass, and it comes to you shipped in pieces that you will need to put together. And some people build their own observatories. You can make one that's just a dome, like what you see at a public observatory, or you can make a roll-off roof, but those have a big footprint, so you would need to have a big yard or big space to put it in. And those are some of the essential and not so necessarily essential accessories for your telescope. And that concludes chapter 11. I'll see you in the next chapter. Until then,